Hello, I'm Alex and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is a place where I talk about what I've been making each month, and I've got some lovely knitting bits to show you. So I'm going to pop my cup of tea down. I'll start by sharing what I'm wearing because I did actually make this dress. It's my Zote's dress by Deer and Doe, and I'm not sure if you can see, but it just has the buttons at the front and a lovely gathered skirt and short sleeves. And I made this quite some time ago. I'll leave details in the show notes on the fabrics, but I don't think this will be available now. I did make this a couple of years ago, but it's a really nice, it's a viscose challis, and it has a really lovely drape, and it's very light and cool in the summer. So yeah, I thought I'd pull this out of my wardrobe to wear today. I've been a bit under the weather, I've had a cold, so I've got some honey in my tea, and I thought I'd put some makeup on, put a nice dress on, and have a chat with you today. I thought that would be a nice way to spend my work day today. So yeah, I'm going to show you my blanket. If you were here last time, you'll know that I was making a blanket for my friend's new baby Poppy, and I was using the Twinkle Twinkle baby blanket pattern by Curious Handmade, and it's finished. I'm going to stand back so you can see, get a full view. Yeah, it's a really lovely pattern. I've used this before, as I said, and it has this sort of little star pattern that goes all the way through. I changed the edging, so in the original pattern the edging has a simple, quite a modern lace pattern. It's not too fussy, but I like the garter border, so I've just done a few rounds of garter stitch to finish, and I actually went up a few needle sizes. So I knit this on a 4.5, but I went up a few needle sizes and then went with a 7 to bind off, so it has a really good square shape and just enough stretch so I could steam it and block it out really nicely. I noticed that when I bound off once and it seemed a little bit too tight, I wasn't getting a nice square, so I've actually gone up a few needle sizes to get a little bit of stretch in that bind off. But it's a really good pattern. You start at the centre. That was another slight modification actually. Let me mention where the show notes are, so if you're wanting to keep up with all these little bits of information that I'm sharing, below the video there'll be a link that will take you over to the blog with all the show notes where I'll talk about patterns and any modifications that I've made to anything. So that's where you'll find those, and if you want to get them sent to your email, I have a special mailing list that's just for people that watch these videos and wants the show notes. So every time a video goes live, I send out an email and I put all the show notes in that email. So before you've even watched the video, you'll have a list of everything that I've made and everything that I've talked about. So if that interests you, check that out below the video. But so one of the links that I'll put in those show notes is to the tutorial. Hopefully you can see it's got a really neat centre. So I think it was called an invisible circular cast on. I might have found that through Tink Hickman. I'm sure I saw it on somebody's project page, and I know that her blanket inspired my original one, so it might have been credit to her for finding that. But it's a really nice simple cast on, and it just gets a really tight centre so you can really cinch that in, and it has a beautiful finish. And I love the yarn that I've used this time is different to the blankets that I made previously. I've actually used the yarn that was called for in the pattern, so it's a Debbie Bliss Cashmerino. I think it's actually called Baby Cashmerino, and yeah, it's a 55% merino, 33% acrylic and 12% cashmere. So it's a really nice soft blanket for a baby. It'll be washable, really easy to care for. I've made it smaller than the pattern, so this is 5 balls of yarn, and I think I counted them earlier, and from the centre there are 17 of the star repeats, and I have the tiniest, this is all I have left. So I've got this tiny weeny little ball, so I was really playing yarn chicken, and to be honest I lost yarn chicken, had to go back and take out a row to bind off, but it all worked out well in the end, and I think Kerry and baby Poppy are going to love this, so really looking forward to gifting that. As I said, I made it a bit smaller. I kind of envisioned it being the sort of blanket you'd use over the summer. You could put over the car seat or over the pram or that kind of thing. I wasn't imagining it to be sort of a big blanket. I just thought it's really nice when you just need a little cover up or another layer for baby to have something small that you can sort of throw on or keep in the buggy if you need maybe like a little bit of shade. It's the kind of thing that could put up somewhere to add a bit of shade. But I think you'll agree it has a really, really beautiful texture to it. And because you're working from the centre, you really have control over how big you're making it. So I think that's really nice way of doing the blanket as well. I think it keeps it really interesting, just going round and round and round. It's I guess if you've done a triangular shaped shawl, it's that same thing of where it's growing all the time. So this, it grows really quickly in the beginning, which is quite satisfying. It's only as you get to those really long rows. I don't know how many stitches I had on at the end. I had a lot of stitches, but yeah, it's only, I think when you're first getting started on a blanket project, they can grow so slowly. So I think this is a really genius construction that Helen came up with to start from the centre, and also it gives you control of when you stop, because I could have added as many balls as I wanted to if I wanted to do it bigger and make it sort of for an adult size. So yeah, really, really proud of that, and really looking forward to giving that to baby Poppy. So I'll pop that away, and what should I talk about next? I've got a new cast on that I started actually last night, and this is in one of my Spring Bees top handle totes. If you have had your eye on these or any of the Spring Bee bags, you want to be quick and get over to the shop, because I've done an update this weekend, but I think this will probably be the last time I'm updating the Spring Bees, because we're coming into June, so that's going to be summer, so I think it's time I retire the Spring Bees. So yeah, just giving you a little bit of notice that you might want to have a look at those if you've been putting off your purchase. But in here I have a cushion, well, the start of a cushion, and it's called, I think it's called Kuno's Cushions, and it's by a designer that's new to me called Anne Fetzel, and the yarn is also new to me as well. It's called Filcolana, and it's a Peruvian Highland wool. So I'm using black and white. Actually, let me show you a picture of the finished cushion. Let's have a look. Yeah. So hopefully you can see that. I'm doing the black and white. You can obviously use any kind of combination of colours that you want, but I really like this modern sort of very, I don't know, it has a really nice contemporary feel. I just love the black and white. It kind of starts with the white, so you're knitting this in the round and you will seam this closed, if you can imagine. So it's going to start with this white, it goes through the stripes, and then it's going to have bigger blocks of black and white, and then it'll go to the thinner stripes again. It sort of alternates the way through. But the reason why I've stopped here was I didn't swatch for this. I thought I would just cast on, so I'm using the needles. Have a feeling, what have I used? 5mm needle. I think the pattern called for 5.5. But it's way too big. So I think the finished pillow is supposed to be about 30 centimetres by 50 centimetres. It's sort of a longer shaped pillow, and when I measured this, I think this is about 45 I've got, so I actually worked out I can take out quite a few stitches. So yeah, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to cast on again. I just thought it'd be really good to sort of, I mean, you might think that you wouldn't need to be that accurate with something like a pillow, but I do think it's quite important that I get the size right, because you want your cover, if you've done sewing, if you've ever sewn a cushion cover, you'll know that you want to have your cover to be a little bit smaller than the inner cushion. So I think that's quite a standard cushion size to do, like a 50 by 30 centimetre. So I know that I'll be able to get the inner cushion that size, and I want to make sure that this is a little bit smaller so that it just fills it out really nice and it looks nice and plump, and you don't have a baggy sort of cushion cover. You always want your cushion inner to be sort of stretching out nicely, and this has got a really nice firm feel. It's actually a slip stitch pattern. I'll bring it a little bit closer so you can hopefully see. It has a really nice texture to it. As I say, it's 100% Peruvian wool, so it has that woolliness to it, but I think it will look really, really nice. So we'll see how that turns out. I haven't got too much of that to show you because, as I say, I realised it was going to be too big and needed to make some adjustments, but I'm happy that I've worked out exactly how many stitches I need, and I think I'll be able to carry on. When I looked at the row count, actually seemed to be on point for the row count, so that seems good. So yeah, really enjoying that project. It's so relaxing because you're just using one colour at a time, and yeah, you're just slipping knitting. It's really, really nice, so enjoying that one. Another thing I've got to show you is some socks. So I've got another one of my Spring Bee sock sacks. I've got a nearly finished. I thought I'd be able to finish this before I showed you, but couldn't quite get it done. This is in one of my Spring Bee DPN cozies, and it's an At the Vicarage sock by This Handmade Life in the, I think it's the grey colour. It's Cascade Heritage Solids, and as you can see, this is a shorty pair. I've finished the heel. All I have to do now is the cuff. So I can't remember exactly. I think it's about 10 rows of ribbing. I have finished the first one, so that's what that looks like. I've got my sock blockers down here. Let me grab a sock blocker, and so you can see the lace a little bit more clearly. It's a really great pattern. It's nice to have a little bit of interest with the lace, but it's very easy to follow. So that's what that looks like. And I have another pair in this colour, so it's really nice to use up these last little bits of yarn. So this whole skein will have been used up. I've dropped it on the floor, but there's just a little bit, just enough to do the cuffs on this sock. So I think they'll be finished next time when I see you. I really did try last night to get them finished, but I was just too tired. Couldn't do that last 10 rounds. So let's pop those and keep organised. Usually I end up throwing my stuff all over the place while I'm recording these videos, so I'm going to try and keep a little bit more organised today. So I've got my socks. While we're on the subject of socks, somebody asked me about my Regia Arnie and Carlos socks, and I forgot, I never followed up that this was actually my Christmas Eve cast on, and I was knitting these Arnie and Carlos socks, and the colours weren't looking right. This section really doesn't look right. In the pictures, it sort of has light pink and red, and the reds and the pinks all seem to just merge in together. And I did put in a new toe, so this was not part of the ball. The ball starts here with the yellow, and it's supposed to go through and make these really like fun patterns, which I have had with another Arnie and Carlos sock. I did a different colourway of this yarn and really loved that. Loved how it turned out so much that I bought another colourway. But yeah, I was really disappointed how it was turning out. It didn't seem right at all. I really don't think this looked right here, where it's got this very sort of muddy section. It's got grey and peach, and there just doesn't seem to be enough contrast. So I did, sorry, I think, is that better? Yeah, so I did go back and contact them and said, could they check, had anyone else had any problems with the particular batch that I had? Because I said, I understand that it can look different on the screen to what arrives, but yeah, something didn't feel right. And they did write back to me, and they said that it matched the sample they had from that colourway, and that they couldn't see anything wrong with it. The only thing that seemed odd to them was this part, which obviously I added this colour of the toe. So they were like, if that came out of the ball, that was wrong, but everything else seemed okay. So yeah, I'm not going to carry on with these socks. They didn't seem to think there's anything wrong. Even though I can understand that you maybe don't always get the same result from the ball that you see in the picture, I think it should still be a pleasing colour combination. This just doesn't seem right. Doesn't seem right at all to me, to my eye, and I can't see that changing the gauge or the way the stitches are lined up would make any difference. So, knowing how they knitted up in the other pair of socks, I'm not doing anything different with these. And it doesn't seem like this section here, it doesn't seem to be to do with how the colours stacking up. The colours just seem off in this batch. So yeah, that's a little bit disappointing, but I'm glad that I did reach out to them, and yeah, so that was the outcome basically. I think I hadn't talked about it before because I just sort of put it to one side, didn't really think about it again. And then someone actually mentioned on Instagram and said, what happened with the socks, that they were interested to know, because I did mention that they weren't coming out right and they stopped. So yeah, that was what happened with those. I just stopped and put them to one side. So the last thing I've got to show you is my hand sweater, which is in one of my lovely spring bags. I love the pink on the bottom of this one. Still got a few of these in the shop as well. And I'm just going to speak really briefly about this because I haven't made a lot of progress, but I just wanted to prove to myself, future reference on the podcast, that I have in fact worked on this, and this just shows how slow it is because this is a few hours worth of work. So this little pin here is where I think I left off last time I spoke to you. So I've got about an inch worth of knitting, but I think she calls it a grass stitch pattern. It's a lace weight yarn. This is a Julie Hoover pattern called Han, and I'm knitting it using the West Yorkshire Spinners. It's their exquisite yarn in Florence colourway, and it's pieced, so a lot of faith is going into this fitting at the end. Hopefully I've picked the right size, but it's a beautiful, lovely drapey lace weight yarn, and I think it's going to be worth the time that it's taking to knit this. But as I say, won't go on about that too much because there's not a lot to show, but I did want to record that that's something that I've been working on this month. So really the bulk of my time has gone to knitting the blanket because I'm meeting the baby next week, so really needed to get this done. So I pretty much solidly worked on blanket really, to be honest. But those are all my projects that I've got. If you've enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed already, come and subscribe. It's really nice to chat to you every month about what I'm working on. I'd love it if you told me what you're working on. I always read all your comments, and yeah, I find lots of pattern inspiration from all the things that you share with me that you're making. And as I said, there'll be show notes below in the description box if you want to click over and get any of the information for things that I've been talking about today. That would be great. So yeah, I will speak to you in a few weeks' time. I hope you have a lovely day, and yeah, I'll speak to you soon. Bye bye.